So today the topic that I'm going to touch upon is first time adoption of IND AS in the financial statements of the company. So before starting the first time adoption, I'd like to talk about something about IND AS. IND AS as a concept itself is going to be a big time revolutionary change in the financial framework reporting of India. Not only because it is a converged version of IFRS, but also because India is going to implement some latest global standard in which India will be the first country to implement it. Being the first country to implement it, I would say implementation, doing an implementation when you don't have any back history, a lot of interpretation will be required. There will be no practical examples which will be available, which will be a greater challenge for India. Now, before starting the implementation part, I would like to put it in an inverted commas. That is, implementation of IND AS is a quantum leap and mere just not an intention. Now, when I talk about what are the difference between the Indian gap and the IND AS, what are the carve-outs that the IND AS has brought, all these are well available in books. Sticking to the topic, that is the first time adoption of IND AS, I would like to talk about the practical sides and the practical difficulties that the companies will be encountering while implementation of IND AS. So the first major issue that will come is a dual reporting framework. Now you all must be thinking, what is this dual reporting framework? So dual reporting framework will come, the question will come where the consolidation will be required. As we all know that there is a certain class of company to which the IND AS is applicable as far as the current rules and regulations are concerned, and few companies like banking, insurance and NBFCs are exempt. So now taking for an example a company like a Tata Sun, wherein the group company is an NBFC or the holding company is an NBFC, but the other multiple subsidiaries that which has are not an NBFC. So this for the subsidiaries, I would say that IND AS will be applicable, but as far as the holding NBFC Tata Sun company is considered, the current Indian gap will be applicable. So for the subsidiaries, it will be a dual reporting framework because for the standalone purposes, they'll have to make their financial statements in the IND AS, while for the consolidation purpose, the numbers have to be reported in the IND gap because the holding company is reporting under IGAP, the current IGAP. So conversely talking, wherein the holding company is not exempted and the IND AS is applicable to it, whereas it has 10 subsidiary out of which 2 are NBFC. So those 2 again will be making the standalone financial statement in the Indian gap, whereas for the consolidation purpose, they'll have to report under the IND AS. So now what will happen in such a dual reporting framework, as far as the readers of financial statements are concerned, they'll be the insights into the numbers will change because the results, the net income, the net worth that you will be reporting for the standalone purpose and the Indian gap will be altogether different, and the numbers which will be reporting for the consolidation purpose for in under the IND AS will be altogether different. So all the companies to have a proper reconciliation, giving it to stakeholder why there is a lot of difference will be a greater challenge for them, and a dedicated team will be required working for that reconciliation between the two results reported. Coming to the second very major issue, that is, while implementation, communication will be a robust procedure that will be required. When I talk about communication, it is not only the internal training which will be required to be imparted to the accounts department, to the finance department as far as what is IND AS, how it's going to be implemented, but also a lot of involvement of a supply chain, CRM, as well as a lot of communication with the stakeholders will be required. When I say a communication to stakeholders will be required, reason being till now the companies are reporting under the Indian gap, wherein we know there is a certain number which is reported as your net income, there is a certain number which is reported as net worth. But now suddenly in a year when I shift to the IND AS, the results will drastically change. The management would be much more questionable by the stakeholders and they will have to answer why there is a lot of difference. So while on the process of implementation, they will be keep communicating with their supply chain management, with the stakeholders, and they'll keep management updated as regards to what are the changes are being done. Then the results which are going to come under IND AS will not be a surprise to stakeholders, the share market, everything. If you see for an example, companies like L&T have already started these procedures and they are already communicating to the management coming with a fair value accounting, coming with the discounting of provisions, what are the impacts that the numbers going to have. The third major issue in the implementation of IND AS would be the disclosure part of it. Till now, under the IND gap, I would say the IGAP, I would say the numbers which are reported in financial, the disclosure were the factual part of it. Suppose if I'm reporting certain numbers as my sales, Then again, FOB value of export, which I used to report in the disclosure, used to be some factual information and I would say a historical information. Coming towards the IND AS, when we talk about a disclosure like a sensitivity analysis, it's not only the factual information, it is an analysis which is required to be given by the company. It is something which is going to show what the impact on the future number would be. So there will be a deep insights into the financial statement, and sensitivity analysis is not going to be an easy task for the companies, because taking for example one part of sensitivity analysis, that is the exchange rate analysis. So every company will require to analyze what is the foreign currency exposure, and then a little change in exchange rate could, what will be the impact of little change in exchange rate on their numbers in the future. Now, fourth major issue that will come up will be the IT system upgradation. Till now, the IT systems which are there in the as all the companies are using, may it be Tally, may it be Oracle, may it be SAP, the modules which are there are aligned as per the Indian GAAP. The reports, the data collection process for the preparation of financial statement, those softwares are aligned to it. Coming with the IND AS, there will be a lot of additional information which will be required. So every company will need to review their IT systems, their IT modules, then the implementation of the new modules and application controls in the SAP which will be required. And for this, every company will need to have a dedicated IT team working on the alignment of the IT software along with what information is required as per the IND AS. Now, fifth important thing that will come up is the interpretation of IND AS. Till now, as we say, IND AS is not an IFRS, but it's also not an Indian GAAP. It's a converged version of IFRS. So then every company will require a detailed interpretation, a detailed analysis on what is there in IFRS, but what is not there in IND AS, and how it's going to practically be interpreted, what is the interpretation that will be required, and how it will be implemented in the financial statements of the company. Coming towards the another sixth point that is going to play a major role is the review of internal control systems which the companies has. Till now, the internal control system, as far as the reporting under the current Indian GAAP were concerned, whatever, if I would say, current Indian GAAP is much more rule based. That is why the maker checker concept was there, but it was lesser. When we talk about IND AS, it's more about estimates, it's more about judgments. So a robust maker checker process will be required. Whatever is being implemented under IND AS has to be reviewed. So the management will require to review the management matrix, the authorizations matrix, the in the SAP, whatever is the review process, so that a lot of internal controls and check could be kept before any number is reported into the public. Coming towards an overall plan for the implementation of IND AS, I would say first step would be analyzing the current situation, the current way the accounting is done in each company and how the numbers are reported. Second would be forming the interpretation of IND AS. Third would be actually implementing the IND AS along with aligning your IT systems. And fifth will be reviewing what is being implemented. Because when something gets implemented first time, the review of what is being implemented is what is going to play a major part. Now, when it comes to IND AS, I would say IND AS is gonna be a great change in the way the accounting is done, and it's gonna give much more deep insights, and it's gonna be much more true and fair and transparent picture of what the results of the companies are, and it's gonna be I would say it is gonna bring a great economic change, because not only the company's financial statements will be aligned with the international standards, but also the investment which the foreign investors do will increase in India. Reason being, when the financial statements are in align with the international standard, the comparability of the financial statements will increase, and that is the reason a foreign investment would be much more attracted towards India. Coming towards the conclusion, I would only say our CA fraternity works a very important and major role when the implementation of IND AS is concerned, because we, being the auditors, being the advisors, we really need to work, and we need to walk with our clients hand in hand to help them implementing IND AS. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.